Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas, and by the time this video comes out, a Happy New Year's. Today I want to talk about the new movie, Red One. Red One is directed by Jake Kasdan, who directed both of the new Jumanji films. The synopsis is as follows. When a villain kidnaps Santa Claus from the North Pole, an elf operative joins forces with the world's most accomplished tracker to find him and save Christmas. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. This movie opens with Dwayne Johnson playing Dwayne Johnson as a character named Callum Drift, and he plans on stepping down from his position after helping Santa make it through one last Christmas, when all of a sudden late one night there's a breach at the North Pole and Red One, aka Santa Claus, is kidnapped. Callum Drift contacts a mythological organization led by Zoe, and with the help from Jack O'Malley, try to save Santa and save Christmas. I really enjoyed the plot of this movie. It wasn't extremely deep or complicated, but it was very creative. And creativity seems to be a very rare thing nowadays, so I really enjoyed that about this movie. There also is a subplot having to do with why Callum Drift is retiring. And while I didn't explore the depth that they could have with that concept, it was still very strong by itself. And so from beginning to end, I found myself enjoying the simple but fun plot that this movie had to offer. So for me, plot gets a thumbs up. 2 is family friendliness. Red One is rated PG-13. It has a mild to moderate bit of profanity, a lot of action and violence, a couple darker themed elements, and some very mild adult humor. This movie doesn't go overboard on anything, and I think it could be enjoyed equally by adults and kids. So use your discretion, but for me, family friendliness gets a thumbs up. 3 is acting and script. Jake Kasdan really seems to like Dwayne Johnson, which I think is so funny because he plays the same character in every single movie. However, I will say that when Jake Kasdan has used Dwayne Johnson, I do enjoy those movies. Dwayne Johnson feels right at home in this role as Callum Drift. I actually really enjoyed Chris Evans in this role as Jack O'Malley, and I think the chemistry between Dwayne Johnson and Chris Evans was really great. Lucy Liu does well, and she's back in my good graces after the absolute dumpster fire that was Shazam 2. And even though J.K. Simmons isn't in the movie for very long, I really enjoyed his portrayal of Santa Claus. Look, the acting performances in this movie aren't going to win any awards, but they were very enjoyable. And the script was actually surprisingly clever. With movies like this, it can be so easy to just mail it in and try to be over the top funny and have a lot of jokes not land. But this movie was tastefully funny. The humor was well written and clever, and there were only a couple kind of cheesy or cartoonish moments. But for the most part, the acting was fine and the script of this movie was pretty well written. So for me, acting and script get a 50-50. 4 is character development. Callum Drift gets some decent character development, and that has to do with the subplot of him wanting to leave the services of Santa Claus. They could have done a lot more with it, but they just chose not to. There's also the character development of Jack O'Malley, and he gets some very mild development with his son, but it's not touched on a lot in the film. And for those 2 characters, what they did was serviceable, but they could have done so much more. But the one thing I will say is that this movie has a really weak villain. No backstory, no development, just this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it. And I won't talk about the villain a whole lot because where they reveal them in this movie kind of makes it a bit of a spoiler. But I will say that they were so underdeveloped that it just was basically a fill-in as a villain position. And they absolutely could have made that a much bigger and stronger part of the film if they had focused on it more. They had really good starts for a lot of these characters, but they didn't explore them at all. So for me, character development gets a 50-50. 5 is visuals and CGI. The CGI in this movie is actually pretty decent. You're able to still achieve escapism even though they use some darkness to hide some bad CGI. And there are a few moments where you can clearly tell things are CGI, but you're still able to enjoy it and have fun. They also use some practical effects and makeup and cosmetics that look really good and also cause some really funny moments in the film. I love when movies do that, and this one had a nice balance with its CGI and visual effects. I will say, though, that with the action sequences in this movie, Callum Drift is basically discount Ant-Man, and so a couple of those moments seemed like they were overused or cheesy at times. But other than that, it was all enjoyable. So for me, visuals and CGI get a thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability. Red One clocks in at just over 2 hours long. But because this movie was so creative and funny, and the plot was simple but enjoyable, it didn't feel like a very long film. film. I enjoyed the journey you went on in this movie, and although it wasn't perfect and they didn't explore everything that they could have, the unexpected world building that they had in this movie piqued my interest a lot. But for this movie, it is one that I could easily see myself rewatching, especially around Christmas time. So for me, rewatchability gets a thumbs up. With all these areas considered, I have to give Red 1 a 6 out of 10. This movie had a couple cheesy moments, some serviceable CGI, and a lot of good concepts that they just didn't go for depth with. But it had a lot of fun action, a lot of really tasteful and clever humor, decent acting performances, and an enjoyable and entertaining story from start to finish. Even with all the good this movie had to offer, I will say I probably wouldn't spend $15 to go see it in theaters. But the best part about it is it's available on Amazon Prime now. So because of that, I definitely think it's worth taking a look at. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Red 1, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.